Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we'll have a new EDH deck tech. This is a battle cruiser deck that will show your friends who's the real alpha at the table. By raining down blows, you'll be able to single-handedly take on your beta tablemates that never even realized that combat actually wins games before you handed their own asses to them. But before I show you the deck that'll make your friends ask if you're compensating for something, I'll need you to smash that like button and subscribe, as those collector boosters won't crack themselves. But enough of that. Why this deck? Well, other than being a sick deck piloted by my buddy Jordan, it's a fun deck when you're worried that your competitive Riel deck will just win, and you're tired of playing it pre-con with your new friends. This deck walks the fine line of being powerful without your friends complaining that all you do is play blue and counter the shit. And while blue is often the correct answer, this game unfortunately requires other people to play. But who's the star of this deck? Who is the king of the dinosaurs? Well, it's Gishath, Sun's avatar. This legendary dinosaur demands respect the second it hits the battlefield, and is always something other players should be careful of when you start counting up how much open mana you have. This 7/6 dino that casts for 5 generic and a Naya has trample, haste, and often forgotten vigilance. It also has an additional ability that lets you do something powerful, cheat mana costs. Whenever Gishath deals combat damage to a player, look at that many cards from the top of your library and put all dinos into the battlefield. Note, they don't need to have a CMC less than the damage, just have the correct creature type. So not only have you just swung with a beast of a commander, the second it connects, boom, instant dino army. You can go from an empty board to winning in your next combat very easily, and this shows the power of your commander. But what's so great about powerful spells if you don't have the mana to cast it? Well, luckily for us, we run one of the best commander colors, green, home of the best ramp spells. Take your pick: Farseek, Cultivate, Kodama's Reach, Explosive Vegetation, Sky Shroud, Claim. If it gets lands on the battlefield, then you really can't go wrong. If you're looking for a few more unique ramp options since we're still Dino Tribal, then Otepic, Huntmaster, Ranging Raptors, or even Wayward Swordtooth will stay on theme. I feel obliged to say this: yes, run Soul Ring, as well as Urza's Incubator and Garruk Wildspeaker. But we're a big mana deck, and to do this, we need to go massive. So we run Mirari's Wake and a new dino to the group, Regal Behemoth, which lets us have explosive turns. And lastly, another piece of ramp that people were really excited about, but I haven't really seen, is the Great Henge. This rock has a high CMC, but with all your powerful dinos, it will be greatly reduced. And the ramp it gives you, as well as the card advantage it generates, is really impressive. But when your game plan involves smashing faces in with your dinos, you'll need a suite of removal to clear the way for your horde. For removal of pesky creatures, rerun Trapjaw Tyrant, Burning Sun's Avatar, Apex Altasaur, and Magmasaur as a good mix of dinos for Gishath, and Path to Exile as an all-around staple for instant speed trickery. To remove annoying artifacts and enchantments like Ghostly Prison or Ensnaring Bridge, rerun Aura Shards that pairs nicely with our large creature amount. Sylvan Reclamation, if exiling instead of destroying is what you need, Thrashing Brontodon for its creature type, and lastly, Beast Within for any non-creature permanent. Deathgorger Scavenger is a great aggressive option for sniping key pieces from your opponent's graveyard. Since this is Dino Tribal, it only makes sense to include Wakening Sun's Avatar as a one-sided board wipe, especially when you get to see the look of despair on your opponents who thought their blockers would let them survive another turn. And if we're talking about dinos that can just decimate a board, there's one card that always comes to mind: Zakama, Primal Calamity. This massive dino not only is free if you can cast it from your hand, it also lets you pick off creatures and enchantment at instant speed, and gain you life in the process if there's nothing more important. I also list him as an all-important player removal, as he doubles as a beat stick with vigilance. The last piece of removal we run is Strip Mine. This land is important to remove those pesky mazes of Ith, since we're all about swinging with one big creature. And speaking of swinging with one big creature, this deck runs a small Voltron package to both maximize Gishath's trigger and allows you to see commander damage as a viable option. We run a few different equipment to help. Sword of Feast and Famine allows you to ramp and get around most creatures. Sword of Fire and Ice acts as card advantage and another piece of removal. And Sword of Light and Shadow lets you rebuy creatures and gives you protection from some of the two best colors for killing your creatures. Blackblade Reforged gives an amazing boost of power and toughness, often turning Gishath into a one-shot late game. And one of the few creatures we run that aren't in the Dino tribe is Xenagos, God of Rebels. This god is scary, as it allows not only Gishath to grow, but any creature can turn into a massive threat, with this god giving a little divine inspiration. We also run a few utility lands to help push damage through. Okina, Temple of the Grandfathers, and Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion, help with the damage output, while Rogue's Passage lets Gishath slip through any opponent's defenses. But what happens if you don't want to leave it to chance when Gishath connects? Unfortunately, Xenagos won't help us in that area, so instead, we grab Destiny by the horns and bend it to our will. To that end, we run cards that will manipulate the top of our library, so we'll never have to rely on the heart of the cards, no matter how many Yu-Gi-Oh memes I see. Temple of Abandon and Temple of Plenty allow a simple scry run, and while not peering into the abyss of the deck, it does let you dig at least one card deeper or help you play in your turn. Sylvan Library lets you draw the 9 dinos and leave the dinos on top for Gishath at the low cost of 4 life per extra card. And if you happen to draw your dinos before you get Gishath out, Scroll Rack helps you dump them back on top for fresh cards. And if you're looking for specific dinos, we run 2 different creature tutors that put them on top. Forerunner of the Empire acts as both a tutor and an enrage enabler, and Congregation at Dawn, as an instant speed tutor, lets you find multiple creatures at once, and best of all, you can do it in response to the Gishath trigger. But what happens if you can't cast Gishath? How else does this deck generate value? Well, luckily for us, as a supported tribe, Dinos has a few different ways to gain card advantage. One big bad dino we play is a Tally, Primal Storm. This mono-red dino has already carved a name for itself in the EDH community for being able to dominate a board state off of one swing. But maybe instead of pulling ahead, you want to slow your opponents down. Kinjali's Sunwing makes it hard for your opponents to block. Rampaging Ferocidon spits in the face of those Pillow Fort decks that just want to put up their walls and gain life. And Runic Armasaur takes advantage off your opponents activating non-mana abilities of their creatures or lands. But if you're just looking for straight card draw, then Ripjaw Raptor does a good job and can draw you multiple cards off of its Enrage trigger with the proper support. Yadaro, Wandering Monster, is a fun, repeatable cycler that if you get lucky enough, will get a free body out of it, too. Or, falling back on the staples, Harmonize draws you 3 cards for 4 mana and makes all the blue players jealous. We also can gain some advantage in a few utility lands we run, such as Cavern of Souls, the bane of every counterspell deck against tribal strategies, or Path of Ancestry, letting you scry off casting your dinos. And some might be wondering why I haven't really mentioned Enrage yet. Well, just like those blue players seeing that Cavern of Souls, dinos are all about being enraged. This mechanic triggers whenever a creature takes damage. Note, it's for each instance, not the amount done. And while I've mentioned a few cards with the mechanic, here's where I show you how to really break it. Raging Swordtooth, Raging Regisaur, and Marauding Raptor are all great creatures that let us trigger Enrage. Ooh, but that means putting damage on our creatures. That might kill them. Some of the betas that still haven't left might be saying, and to that I say this. The only thing that kills dinos are meteors and the wrath of God himself. But to appease those few, we run a few cards that help mitigate that damage. Siegehorn Ceratops can grow infinitely off multiple triggers of 1 damage. Temple Altasaur will turn lightning bolts into something not even worth mentioning, and Bellowing Aegisaur will allow you to grow your whole team massively. But great, you can trigger Enrage. What are the payoffs? Well, say no more. Enter Silverclad Ferocidons. This will decimate a board off only a few triggers. Or the big bad Polyraptor, who quickly grows into a swarm that will overwhelm your opponents. And lastly, I know that I've already told you about ways of triggering Enrage, but I knew I had to save this card till last. Pyromania is in a class all on its own when it comes to Enrage. For a simple red mana, you can deal 1 damage to all creatures and players. So not only does it let you wipe the board of tiny creatures your opponents play, it also really breaks Enrage. But enough of that. You guys came here to find out how to win with this deck. What are the secret little combos and what are the tips and tricks you need to know? And that's what most people don't get about this Naya aggro deck. Aggro. Your goal is to attack, turn your creature sideways, and then attack again. Players half the time forget they even can attack. Yes, there are a few combos and interactions like Polyraptor and Marauding Raptor for infinite Polyraptors. But Here is where your mentality needs to change. People will fear you more and more when they realize that your high-powered creatures can actually make an impact. With Warstorm out, if you connect with Gishath, the resulting Dinos will almost always be able to take someone out. Your mantra is simple: always be attacking. Your deck will almost always be more suited for a group slug than that Izzet deck that runs maybe 3 creatures. Gishath is the mega Chad you always wanted to play. It's the deck that stomps on all those other passive-aggressive decks that can't even man up and gather the nerve to look at your other opponents funny. It's a powerful deck full of even more powerful dinos, and if you choose to build it, God help your playgroup as they experience the terror of Jurassic Park in real life. Hey guys, I hope you found this entertaining, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing, as it really helps us keep making videos. And remember, never surrender, even if you're dead on board. See you guys later.